Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this evening's special report. The title is Into the Storm with Penny Kelly and JSNIP4. Of course, in perfect Mercury retrograde fashion, I'm having trouble connecting with Joe here today. So we're going to start the show with Penny. Of course, you can find her work at pennykelly.com, and you can find her also here on YouTube, where she just published the latest look-see here for December 2023. Penny, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am great. I hope you are too. So even though it's been a bit of a, rough water for the last week or the last day, whatever it's been. So,
Yeah. That's what happens when you start fighting demons. Sometimes they fight back. I love it. Folks, I just have to let you know, I did get an email from Cliff a few minutes ago saying that he cannot access Rumble. So it appears that Rumble is having issues here. But of course, because they're on this distributed server type of infrastructure, it may work for some of you and may not work for some other people. So if you're having trouble, you can't see it now, please go to either my Twitter, we are simulcasting here on Twitter, as well as on my YouTube channel. I see 2,500 or 2,600 already here in the Rumble chat, and there's quite a few also in YouTube. So we'll keep it running here across the board. And again, my buddy Joe just sent me a text, and he said he's going to be a few minutes late. So we'll welcome him in as soon as he arrives. Penny, we're sitting here on December 19th. You and I haven't spoken for about a month here. A lot has already gone through, a lot of water underneath the bridge already in a month. It seems like a year's worth of news just went by. But just this evening, I think one of the biggest news that's coming out now is this fact that the court has removed Trump from one of the ballots, setting us up now perhaps for this big fight at the Supreme Court, and maybe Justice Thomas finally having his say. Let me bring that up on the screen here. What's your take on all of this? We'll get into the look-see a little bit later and some of the components here, but was this plan? Was this where they wanted to go the whole time? What do you think is happening here, Penny?
Well, I don't know if it was part of the plan, but I think it has become part of the plan. And my immediate perception was this is another tactic for splitting us. Mm-hmm. And since I've been on this for the last 3 weeks, probably, this one track that is looking at something that, there's kind of a story behind it, but it culminated in this realization that they're going to use everything they can to break us apart and split us and destroy the U.S. government. And they aren't going to succeed, but they think they will. And so we're going to be the beneficiaries of all that crap. So it's, I don't see that, let me say it this way, I don't see that we're going to be smart enough as a population, no offense, people, enough of us will be, I don't see enough of us being smart enough to be able to carry the common sense and the goodwill and the to hold things together, and then the information from Martin Armstrong's conference. He does a conference every year. It's a big conference, and he had some very specific dates in that conference that I had kind of picked up on in a loose, general way. And I was wondering actually what Cliffy's were, because I haven't paid attention to what he's been saying. Because I'm on this heavy duty recording schedule. But I think, as I look out there and look forward, we're into some deep doo-doo after I'm going to say by the end of January, and then it gets worse in March, and then it gets worse in May. And then it's just downhill from there. So.
Okay, yeah. Tell us the good news, Penny. Hold on a second here.
Well,
hold on a second. So there's a few people saying we're not broadcasting on Rumble. Yes, we are. I see on my Rumble screen that it's working from my end. I know that we are connected right now. I'm looking at our stream studio, and it is connected to the RTMP and Rumble in the back. I do apologize for that. But again, Mercury retrograde, or they might be having another type of denial of service attack. They've been having issues here in the last week. They had this attack from China, as well as maybe server overload when Rumble started their January 6th footage channel just a week ago. So there's a lot of weird things happening. So bear with us, guys. We're going to try to do this as best we can. And of course, the show will be available on replay later on this evening. And hopefully that'll all make sense for you guys. Another big piece of the news this week, and this was like, wow, we've been asking this for a very, very long time. This is the judge who's now issued an order to basically share the 170 associates here of Epstein. And a little bit higher in the tweet, somebody was saying, yeah, she probably needs some extra security right about now. Yeah, I agree with that. So we're finally here, Penny, where perhaps we're going to find out who these people are. Of course, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for having procured children, underage people here to the elites. So was Epstein himself. And now finally, we might get to see who are the people doing the crimes themselves. What do you make of this right now in the timing of here again, just before Christmas, all this rhetoric of this blackout being just in front of us here, perhaps as a strategy to prevent us from seeing the news and seeing this kind of stuff here? What's your first reaction to this news item here from today?
I think I've been expecting it. I hope other people have been expecting it. We've been hearing for quite a long time that this particular time, I think starting in like October, November, there was just going to be one revelation after the next, nothing to do with the Bible, other revelation. So I think that's what we're seeing. And there's just not a very what I'm going to call, there's not a very patient way of looking at that and saying, oh yeah, I already knew that. People are, it's just going to stir people up all over again. I do think it's necessary for us to know. I've seen some things that I have thought I don't want to know anymore about that. I know enough. And so I think this is like the tip of the iceberg.
Definitely something that a lot of people are going to have trouble digesting. I'm getting reports that there's a little bit of a squeaky noise. I think I'm getting feedback from your microphone. If you can bring up your speaker volumes, not your microphone, but bring down your speaker volumes so that I'm
up or down?
Down. Yeah. You can still hear me okay, but bring me down a little bit.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Hang on. Can you hear me? I'll bring my mic a little closer. We can hear you fine.
Yeah. And again, it could just be this weird connection with Rumble, some of the issues they're having, but I believe now we're okay. Speaking about not wanting to hear some of this information, I understand that. Another big topic that I've been on here for the last couple of weeks, of course, is the work of Mauro Biglino and the Naked Bible. We've had some issues in the last week or two, Penny, to say the least. And I still feel strongly about this. The more I do research, and I'm about 100 hours into it, just in videos and interviews, let alone the 2 books now under my belt of this particular author and researcher. And to me, the more I look, there's more than more and more evidence to suggest that, again, there's been a big deception at play here. So I'm going to have this other conversation here on December 21st with Jay Widener. He's going to bring in some of his viewpoint on this also, and very fascinating how this ties into alchemy, which was originally alchemy. So anyways, it ties in again to the Elohim conversation. So this is now going to be on December 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern. Guys, please do join us for that one. It's going to be a Rumble-only conversation. Penny, your thoughts on this? Where do you stand on all this stuff and this research? What do you want to share with the audience at this point? And again, I know it's difficult for a lot of people to hear, but the whole point is being able to bring different viewpoints, different points of views, different conversations, respecting as adults that we have different points of views, but trying to build a bigger picture of our understanding of this world. And perhaps, if we're lucky, extricate ourselves from the deception and from the matrix of control. At least that's what I'm trying to do here on the channel. Penny, what's your thought on all this?
Well, let me say first, loud and clear, thank you for bringing this up, because this is something, when Cliffy started talking about the Elohim, I thought, OMG, oh, okay, maybe it's going to come out. And then, you and Janine picked it up, and then everybody was, talking about that. And from my point of view, this, when you have a full-blown Kundalini experience, some things that other people that you can't talk about. Other people are just not ready. And so I have been sitting on this kind of information for 44 years. And when you guys started talking about it, I started to cry. It was like, oh, thank you, Lord. Oh, my God. Finally, the reality. If you don't get past all the religious dogma, we're not going to be able to expand consciousness and get into understanding the nature of reality. And if you don't understand the nature of reality, you can't really expand your consciousness or do anything with it, even if you do expand, because you'll be too caught in the old ideas and the old, oh, hang on, let me calm down. So,
I know you're agitated. I've been agitated also today. I think people may know what's going on, but I feel you, Penny, and I feel so strongly about it for the same reason as you. I'm just trying to get to the truth. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Right.
These researchers are wrong. That's okay, but let's have the conversation. I'm just tired as hell of the censorship, the blocking, the canceling the debate, deleting people for having different viewpoints, when all we've done is been respectful to everybody who has ever been on our show. It's very frustrating to me, but still, go on, Penny. I understand why you're...
And I would add that that's behaving like a sixth grader. I mean, that's, well, I'm not talking to you. Well, come on, grow up.
Yeah. Good
God. It's, my attitude, this is from my mother, I'll pass it on. Grow up or shut up. So, okay. Now back to being nice. So, I think there are so many points and so many pieces of reality that would make so much more sense, be so much more encouraging, so much more exciting, so much more realistic, and so accelerative in terms of our development as humans, if we could get past a lot of that dogma that is basically dog poop. It's not, it's stuff that is made up. And after I read the Bible the third time, cover to cover, and then I've read pieces and parts of it ever since. And then after I read the work of Anatoly Fomenko, and a few others, I had some good friends that were Catholic nuns, and they saw through the BS in a hot second. They stayed with their order because they had spent too many years in it, but they were actively trying to get people to go beyond the dogma and listen to the wisdom, etc. Anyway, the whole thing now is we're right there. We can walk through that door, and what we'll have is a better idea of how reality works, and all of the excitement and the wonder of the truth, which is far more powerful and far more exciting than the stuff that's in the Bible.
Well, very empowering, absolutely, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And there were a few people suggesting today that somehow there was justification for blocking or stopping the debate. And I'm like, no, there's never justification for that. Many thousands, perhaps millions of people died.
I know.
We're still on YouTube here, so because of the products they probably took in the last 2-3 years, and they might not have taken that product if the doctors and the nurses and the PhDs in virology had not been blocked, and if the politician had not said, hey, trust the science, but only our science, don't talk to all of these other people. That's the exact route that got us into all of this trouble. So I hope that people who are on the other side of this debate can just okay, let's have a conversation again. We're adults and all of this. On that note, I'm going to have Max Egan. We were supposed to be on today. We had a little bit of confusion there, but he's okay, guys. Don't worry. Everything's fine. He just reached out to me after the show. Something was off in our schedule. So we're going to be back here on December 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern. This one again here, the war against humanity, as well as the return of the Elohim. So that's going to be another blockbuster of a show. Don't miss that one. at 3 p.m. This Friday. Hey, and speaking of the devil himself, I've got JSNIP4. He's in the live chat now, Joe.
All right.
You can find him, of course, at Realist News or JSNIP4 here on YouTube. Joe, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Pretty good. Had a big old giant roadblock I had to go around to get here.
Oh,
So,
It's a Mercury retrograde. Nothing works today. We're having issues on Rumble too, apparently. Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, man. Just your first reactions, Joe, before we go too far. Two news items today. One of the courts here struck Trump's name from the Colorado ballot. That's one of the big news here today, setting up perhaps this fight with Justice Thomas here at the Supreme Court. You and I kind of talked about this or telecasted this a month ago. And also now this judge putting out an order here to release the 170 names of the associates here of Epstein and what perhaps was happening on that island. Two big news items. Your first reaction to both here, Joe, before we go too far.
yeah, not surprised. I mean, most of the courts are deciding with Trump's like he hasn't been convicted of an insurrection. You can say we're going to try him somehow, which they're not even really doing. You know, I mean, they're trying with all these stupid BS court cases that are going nowhere, but like you have to convict him first. So he has to be charged with an insurrection before you can say we're using this amendment of the Constitution to pull him off the ballot. So if a court decides, well, in our case, yeah, we're going to keep him off the ballot. Again, it can be appealed. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Again, it's just all this crap to me is just noise. But yeah, that guy right there, Clarence Thomas, activate. It's very possible. We had a chat about him a while back where he was like the overseer of this thing where he could kind of make the decision himself if he wanted to.
Right.
You know, so, and again, I think, and that was also, that decision had something to do, I think, with Dick Algar's, Congress being shut down thing.
Death of the dollar, remote viewing. Yes.
Exactly. Yep. So that could happen. The other thing, which was, what was the other one you asked me about?
The judge just putting out an order to release these
Epstein.
170 people.
Yeah. That's interesting. 177, I think, was the number. And again, why right now? This has been trying to come out for a long time. Why would the judge or whoever? Let me go ahead and now step in. It's all about timing. It's always been about timing, and it happens when they want it to happen. Just like when Justice Ginsburg, she died. Yeah, okay. They had that lady, the clone comes out or whatever. The actress comes out. It's like. But officially, here's the date. And again, Antheos is like, oh, yeah, on this date, get ready. And then the date hits. And oh, my gosh. It's like, yeah, because it's all just a giant show. It's just a big play.
Right.
They kind of did the same thing with Nelson Mandela. That guy had been on ice for quite a while until they announced his death. But anyways, I digress. Joe, tonight's episode, let me see if I can bring up the poster again here, too. First of all, thank you, both of you, for your time here tonight. We're going to try to dive into the storm here, so to speak. Penny kind of alluded it in the intro, Joe. You missed that. Where in her look-see, things are not looking so rosy here moving forward into the springtime. I'm going to also have the Into the Storm conversation with Sarah Westall and Sean from SGT Report. I believe it's on January 2nd or January 4th. And we're again going to be looking at how to navigate 2024. So a big thank you to both of you for being on the show. And I remind you, we are triple casting still on YouTube. So let's be nice with some of our bad words, Joe and Penny. Where do you want to start with this, Joe? I want to start with you. Maybe take the next 2 or 3 minutes here. Line up some of the dots for the audience members here as to where this is going. You just mentioned the why now. What's your interpretation? There's this whole idea of this push towards the CBDC. It didn't work with the previous attempt in the last 3 years. Now they have to create this other manufactured event, perhaps a stock market crash or a currency crash here in order to push us through that. You just mentioned why the timing about the pedophiles coming out now too. What's your take on what we're about to witness here moving into 2024? Spend a few minutes here.
Yeah, I'm thinking, again, some more truths are going to come out about everything. And again, this weird, the gay sex thing in the Senate hearing. What is, again, timing? What is going on
Bringing
here?
back decency to the ballot, Joe.
Yeah, this is perfectly set up for Joe Biden to, for them to play that. And not only that, there's the kid next to Joe Biden. Hey, in some, what's the chances that that's the kid?
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's just, I feel like we're just watching a show. None of it's effing real, just for some agenda or someone else's agenda, a counter agenda, whatever. Penny said, Joe, when you go to do your dream thing, ask for, like, give instructions as to what's going on with Trump and what's the general sentiment people are having towards him by, say, the end of January. And see if you can get any information. So I went to bed every night since then, which is just a few days ago. And I said, all right, Spirit, this is what she wants to know. You have anything to share with me? And I didn't really get anything. And then only last night, and I'm going, I think it was just a dream. I'm not feeling like this was prophetic. I felt like it's just a dream. But I was a third-party contractor worker for the theme park Busch Gardens, but I wasn't actually really a worker. I was pretending that I was a third-party worker, and I have access to Busch Gardens, and I'm here to fix such and such, and I go into this back room, and a girl was like, hey, where's your badge? Where's your whatever badge? And I was like, oh, I think I forgot. My son gave me one. Oh, but I started talking to her real quick to throw her off, like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. Here's what I'm doing, and she was like, oh yeah, well there's the issue, whatever. So there's a door out there, and there's an automatic thing. We can't get it to work to open the door. Okay, and I'm basically there to fix this thing, but I know I'm not allowed to be there. I'm not really a worker, but I'm pretending to be, but I'm there to fix the thing. So I'm going to fix the problem. So the only thing I took away from initially first of all, ever since my plane crash a month ago, I haven't been doing the whole listen to my music at night thing religiously every night like I normally did, because I was in pain for a while, trying to sleep and roll over. It wasn't working. I'm like, I'm just taking a break. I'm not doing that. So I just kind of started getting back into, let me put the headphones back on and do my thing at night. And usually when that happens and I take too long of a break away from it, I start dreaming, but they're just regular dreams. And I go back to the music, and then all of a sudden, okay, they start turning into prophetic dreams or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know exactly I don't think this was, but there could be some things, because I said, well, wait a minute, I was a third party person. Well, third party, Trump, is he going to be a Republican? He says he is, but we're like, well, he needs to be his own thing way over here and get rid of the two-party system. So we've always heard that. So I thought, well, is there just a little something to that? Me being a third-party guy that's not even really, I'm pretending to be I'm pretending to be somebody that I'm not, to go there and fix this problem for them. I had no, I was scared I was going to get caught, but I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just here to fix this door thing, this broken door thing they have. But I know I'm not supposed to be here. And I was kind of excited to get in and sneak in and do it, see if I could do it without getting caught. So I'm like, yeah, to me, that doesn't sound like there's anything there for what's the sentiment about Trump by the end of January, or even anything about him. And I just didn't get anything.
I think there's a lot in that.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'll get the Penny to chime in here. I just want to share in the live chat, when I asked you the question, Joe, why now? What's the timing, all of this? Cliff High's in the chat, and he says, well, it's to keep you all distracted while the Elohim sneak up on you. Yeah, that could be a good point.
Listen, I had a dream recently, too, that I was in a spaceship, a UFO, fighting ETs in a UFO.
Wow.
Like, we had highly advanced technology, and I'm fighting them in their highly advanced technology. That was an interesting one. I think that might have been before the plane crash, but
we might come back to that dream, Joe, in a second here. Yeah. But first, let's get Penny to decode here the one you just brought up about Trump, the third party, and the whole situation there. Penny, what was your first reaction to that?
When he said I was like a third party, that I immediately was like, that says, since the directions were, what can we learn or know about Trump by the end of January, or get some insight into Trump and the people? If he's going to take a third party route and he's really pretending, that fits some of the stuff that I was picking up, which was really not good. So, and then, where's your badge? Where, all that stuff, that's all questioning. That fits what I picked up. And so that,
maybe this, because since you asked me those specific things to ask for.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I think, to be fair, the last night was my final night of asking, because I obviously can't ask tonight because we're already doing the interview now. And I think when I asked last night, I mainly said, like, whatever Penny Kelly needs, give it to me. Like, because I thought, I'm asking her I'm asking them the way she said, ask this about them, but I'm going,
Right.
I'm asking it the way she said it to me, but I said, whatever
Nothing's
Penny
coming.
Kelly needs out of this, if there's something to show me, tell it to me. So I will say that was last night. So for them to give that to me, it's really for them to give that to me to give to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and you're like, well, that makes sense to me, and that makes sense to me. So maybe that's why I'm going,
Yeah.
I don't know if this was prophetic to me.
And you made the attempt to distract. I mean, that's the name of the game at this point. So nobody figures it out. And you're here to fix a door. Door to what? Door to the future. There's some interesting points in there. Is there anything more? Is there anything else to that? That's it.
Yeah, that was really it. The one lady that was like a manager there was kind of like, asking questions and things, and
yeah,
and I got all the answers because I know what I'm doing, but I'm not really the guy that's supposed to be here. And I seem to remember now that you said that at some point I was like in a back area of this place, and it was like a big, almost like a warehouse, and there was a guy there, and he was supposed to be there, and he was a legitimate contractor. And I remember telling trying to figure out, okay, how can I pretend that I'm with him?
Okay.
So that they kind of get off my back and stop asking questions like, oh, I'm here with him, but he's going to know I'm not here with him because he doesn't know me either. But I was talking with him and looking like we're buddy. And, so it was just, again, like maybe an illusion to them to go, oh, well, he's talking with that guy. That's probably his boss, and we know him. So, okay, this guy's okay. And that was one additional thing I remember now that you said that.
Okay. A contractor usually symbolizes somebody who's there to build something to con people and attract them, contractor, and draw them in. And the other thing you said that was really interesting is it was at Busch Gardens. Bush is the symbol for very low intelligence. Bushes are not high, they're not high growing plants. They're not very tall. And so when you see a bush in a dream, that's a symbol of low growth. And the garden is that's us. We are the garden. We're the plants in the garden. I think we mean a little bit less than plants to the people that are in charge at this point. I hope that's not going to get us in trouble on YouTube. So,
are you saying we're cattle? What are you saying?
I'm the herd,
just lowly animals. Yeah.
The herd.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you, Joe, for sharing that with us. And we're going to digest this a little bit more as we go on. But it might be helpful for the audience members to understand why Penny was asking that of Joe in the first place. So let me bring up, Penny, your latest look-see here. This was the December 15 post, I believe, on your YouTube channel, the Penny Kelly official YouTube channel. You guys can go check that out. I'll bring the link down in the chat below. Start sharing with the audience members what you were seeing and why after that it was prompting you to maybe ask Joe also to chime in on this here. Let's build a road here for the audience members as to what perhaps is just around the corner. We just lost Joe. Again, a lot of technical issues. I'm sure he'll be back, but if you want to bring this up for the audience, go ahead. There you go.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay. Okay, so this story actually starts back in July for me, okay? And so I had been thinking about, or something reminded me of this story that I had heard many times growing up, and it was about the Antichrist, that the Antichrist was going to come to the world and was going to save the world, and everybody would fall in love and want him and be adoring and cheering and supporting, and he would lead them right into hell. And so he would betray them, and that he was a leader. And there were some things that said, there were some Antichrist predictions that said he would destroy the world. And so, I'm thinking about that. And I don't know what I was watching, but I saw a picture of Trump. Or was reading something. I saw a picture of Trump, and he was doing his thing, waving, and he was getting on a plane or something like that. And right after that, there was another story about Trump, and it was the picture said it was Trump, but it didn't look like the first guy that I had just been looking at. And that was kind of this, oh, that must be his, what do you call it? His
double.
Yeah. His
double,
his stand-in, his whatever you call it. So I'm thinking about that. And I had just been dealing with this whole Antichrist story and thinking the only person I know that qualifies for that right now would be Donald Trump. Oh my God, it can't be. No, that would never, just erase that. So then I see these two Trumps, these two pictures. And then like a week or two later, I see another one. And I thought, that's not him either. And it wasn't either of the first two guys. And I couldn't put my finger on what it was about the face that was different. But maybe the face was just a little bit narrower. But it wasn't either of the first two guys. So anyway, long about September, October, maybe somewhere in there, I had been, I think it was in that time frame, I had been talking with somebody or a group of people, and I was talking about all the things that Trump was doing, and I was saying, he's here to save us, and then at the very end of that talk, I must have thrown out this phrase that said, unless he's fooling all of us, because I don't ever settle forever on anybody or anything. Okay, that's just not the way that I have come to be, because as soon as you settle on something, you stop watching, you stop keeping your antenna up. And I have learned over the years that everything is so dynamic, just watch what's happening. So anyway, so this woman then wrote to me maybe a month ago, and she said, I can't shake the memory of you saying, unless he's fooling all of us. And that was the only thing she heard and remembered in that speech that I gave her, that talk. And I had this thought, that's what I teach people, is when you hear something and everything else falls away, and that's all you remember, and you can't shake that memory, that's a message. That's a very important message. So then I'm thinking, well, so anyway, long story short, putting together the Antichrist concerns and the memories of Donald Trump, very carefully championing the warp speed thing, Operation Warp Speed. And then, just watching him and thinking, why is he doing all that? And then all of a sudden it was too much. It was over the top. It was, everything that was happening to Trump was absolutely impossibly bad. And the more that happened, the more I thought something about that isn't real. And so I just, I ended up with this point where I thought, okay, then I see the media starting to change just a little bit, not too much, very carefully managed and somewhat on Trump's side. And so I ended up going to look and thought, okay, what do I see? What do I see at the end of December? Well, I didn't see much of anything. But what about the end of January? I got to the end of January and I could see this Grand Canyon type crack in the population of the United States in the Trump camp. And it just got bigger and worse, and people were abandoning him. Some people, others were ready to fight to bring him on. And it just, by March, it was starting to get ugly. By May, it was ugly, and it went downhill for the rest of the year. And there was no election. I don't know why there wasn't an election, but I could not see an election. And so what has upset me is the fear that all of us have thought that Donald Trump was going to save us or save the Union or save the US or make America great again or something. And if we are betrayed, the disillusionment from that, the anger from that is off the charts. And that is what I saw building over next year. And there was this mass confusion about whether Trump was real or not. And so when Joe's talking about a third party, I'm thinking about the 3 Trumps I saw and thinking, well, one of them must be real, one of them. And you know, what's the game going on here? Is it anything honest? Is anything real? So I don't have any answers, but I have seen this massive splitting and fracturing of the population, and we just degenerate into fighting, which we don't want. I don't want that. I think we can rise above that if we can get smart or get stop ascribing our hopes and dreams to, yep, there's the answer. And instead watch and say, I have a piece of the answer. They have a piece of the answer. These guys have a piece of the answer. How do we put that all together?
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
When you mentioned, I think it might have been in the look-see, that the robes had told you not necessarily that the planet was overpopulated, just that there's so many of you now. This type of governance doesn't really work for that size of a population. You need to do something else. Did they tell you or offer you anything, or was it simply you guys got to figure it out?
I saw the way that the world that the world was organized. They didn't say a whole lot. They said a few things, but we went into some of the communities. There were a lot of local communities. They were self-governing. There weren't very many people, mind you, that we had lost a lot of people. And I remember thinking, well, you know, democracy or the governance republic we have, the Republican government, that would work with this amount of people because there weren't very many people left. But it had shattered long before the communities began to come together, and they had subscribed to, if I could say that, they had signed on to, they had subscribed to is probably the best word, to this version of the Constitution that had very few additions and amendments to it. But it was on the internet. It was like an Ethereum contract kind of thing. And people subscribed to it, and they were personally responsible for managing themselves. And then there were these leaders who kind of rose up. They were the older ones. And they brought people together and they said, this is how we're going to run this. And we're going to subscribe to this. And different groups subscribed to maybe different versions of the Constitution, but they were very similar. And each one had a couple of things in their Constitution and their rules of organization or rules of governance that were very much based on ethics. One of the things the Robes asked me to do was to start the World Council of Ethics, which I did last year. And we have been working on a document for the last 2 years. And it's an ethical document that says these are the ethics that we subscribe to or that we honor and will live by. And then there's another group that just contacted me last week or the week before, and they were from Germany. They had started a group called the Council of the Children, or the Council of Law. I think that was it. In the center of that, they said this was from an indigenous tradition in which indigenous people got together, asked themselves, what is the most important thing in our world? And they eventually, after a lot of debate, said, it's the children. And so they built a little fire in the center of this circle, and they said, our task is to keep this fire going, and all of our laws will be designed to protect the children and the development of the human, because we're all children of the great energy or the great spirit or whatever. And so they would like to join with the Council of Ethics. And I haven't contacted them yet, but I'm very interested in what they're doing. And my people have said, you know, yes, it's going to be messy, but if you put these documents out there, there are people that are putting together new communities and new economic systems and new governance systems and new whatever, you know, survival preppers, all kinds of people. And they will eventually find their way to these documents and say, well, here's a start. We don't have to start from scratch. So that whole thing has been percolating for a couple of years now. And I haven't said a whole lot about it, but they said you need to prepare for the coming apart. If you don't have a vision of what you are headed toward, you're not going to make it. And so that's why they bothered to show me all that stuff, which they then came back and said, write this down. And I'm like,
Let me
down as much as I could.
well, thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. And Joe, thank you for your comment there too. And you know, I remember Joe and I getting into trouble 2 or 3 years ago on YouTube when we were discussing whether or not this Q thing was an op. And a lot of people was like, JC, trust the plan. You're supposed to be a Trump supporter. Blah, blah, blah. We're like, whoa, hold on. And so let's just look.
I know.
Questions here. Remember,
Yeah.
I had the same shit when I was reading the Obamacare stuff. You know, Obama was out there. If you like your doctor, you can't keep your doctor. And I was like reading, like, no, that's not true. And it was like, JC, you're a racist. I'm like, hold on. I'm just reading the text here. Hold on a second. So this whole thing about Q, trust the plan. At some point, I had the little feeling, it wasn't 100%. But I'm with you. It was a nagging feeling that, trust the plan, trust the science, don't question. Like, it's like, anything that's designed to lull me back into complacency worries me. And so I have to be, as an adult or as a responsible adult, brave enough to at least ask the question. So I appreciate what you just brought in there, Penny. Let's bring this up also. Shadow of Ezra, just the other day, he was talking and suggesting here that we might be seeing what he calls the Obama false flag here. Something so sinister, an event so sinister that it would disrupt the 2024 election. So you're not alone here seeing that it appears to be in the plan here to disrupt the election. Now, whether they do this false flag or this assassination attempt on Trump, whether physically or metaphorically, that could also bring us in the context of what other people are suggesting could be a near-death experience or that gut punch moment.
Yeah.
What a bigger gut punch could it be to realize, oh my God, maybe we were duped all of this time, thinking that there was this savior here who's going to come and fix everything. So I've always kept that in the back of my mind.
God forbid.
And the point is like sometimes when I read the news, that feeling goes higher because I'm like, ooh, everything's like going well. And sometimes I see good stuff coming up, like now, maybe the Epstein list and all that. I was like, oh, maybe we're winning now. So that feeling comes back down, but it never really leaves you. There's that nagging feeling. Joe and I have expressed this before too on the show. Where are you on that now too, Joe, on the idea that Cliff High was saying in the chat earlier, we don't need to be saved by anybody. That's an Elohim talking point. Yeah, that's the point. We need to be responsible for self.
Yes.
Is it possible that this, like you just said, Joe, is just a show, but it's a show derived in a much different direction where maybe the only thing that will wake up humans at this point is this huge, what they believe or understand to be a betrayal? Well, what are your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I go, well, the last thing I ever got about Trump was him being in an aviation accident and being shown it's going to be presented as he's on board, but he's not on board.
Oh,
like be very aware he will not be on board no matter what you hear.
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
going, how does that fit into all this? Well, number one, if it's presented that assassination attempt somehow his plane or helicopter or whatever he's on goes down, I said, well, does that mean, is that his exit ramp to go, okay, I'm out of the picture now and I'm going to go live, elsewhere and no one's going to see me ever again? Or is it, again, just part of this plan to say, look, they tried to attack me now. They tried to shoot my freaking plane down. Oh, my God, they put a bomb on board, to really wake Americans up and go, holy shit, they're really after this guy. Because what he's going to be doing is going to be so incredibly drastic. I've always said, when that day comes, when he pulls that trigger, and again, maybe the military comes in, and again, Congress is shut down, all that shit happens, we'll be saying, shit, man, what took you so long? They shot your plane down, And again, maybe he'll come out and say, well, I got some intel at the last moment and I didn't get on board that aircraft. And thank God I didn't, because I lost 2 good pilots and blah, blah, blah. And again, even if the effing thing, there was no pilots, it was remote controlled, it blew up somewhere else, you know, Shanksville, Virginia, 9/11, there's not a plane there, but there's smoke in the ground and, you know, there's no baggage, no wheels, no luggage, nothing's there. But hey, trust us, a big jumbo jet crashed here. Is it going to be one of those, you know, or
Joe,
like
somebody in the chat
recent
is saying,
F-18?
Joe, somebody in the chat is asking you, maybe that means that he's not on board, quote unquote, with the white hats. Is that a possible interpretation?
My interpretations of my dreams are usually, when it's pretty obvious, I don't, it's like, I see what they're telling me.
Okay.
The one with Penny earlier, I go, yeah, maybe it's for her. It makes sense to her. And it made a lot of sense to her. But I thought, well, I did actually last night. That's what I said. Tell me whatever I need to see for her. Right. Like for what she needs to know. So maybe that's why it came in that way. But usually when they're really showing me something, there's not really much interpretation. I'll give you an example. And this happened just several days ago. I had a horrible dream, and it was, they always bring me by my old apartment complex to say, in case you're wondering if this is a dream or we want your attention, pay attention to this one. And my youngest daughter, Ashley, got smashed by a car. Bad. Oh. Like she's going to die here in a few minutes. And her friend's there with her, and I'm watching her, and I'm like, I can't call her mom. I can't tell her mom to come here. She won't get here in time. Ashley's not going to make it. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm calling 911. It's called, what street am I on? And then I wake up, and I wake up with the feeling that I just left that place. I'm crying and everything, but I'm not crying now that I woke up, but I feel like I was. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
All right. Go bathroom, go pee, lay back down. And it was like 3:30 in the morning again, perfect time. And I can't go back to bed after that. So, but finally, way, way later, like when I should probably be waking up, I go to bed for just a second. And now I'm in, so they have a homeschool place where they can kind of go, and there'll be teachers that are paid to be there from the homeschool group that will teach them something. Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, you're home all the time mostly, but go mingle with your friends and the teacher at this place, and they're going to, whatever. But they go for lunch, and they can go across the street this way, that way to some place to get something to eat. And they do it as a group. So I go back to bed, and I'm in the office talking to one of the teachers in the dream, telling her, I just had this dream. I get prophetic dreams. I'm just going to tell you, I need you, even though it's not your responsibility per se, do not let Ashley ever leave these grounds. Don't let her cross any streets, because I saw her getting hit by a car bad. And I think the car just took off afterwards. Oh. So anyway, so I tell Ashley the next day, listen, you know how I have these dreams. I tell you can't go. I don't want you going across any street anymore over there ever. And I'm going to tell your teacher today too, because that was part of my second dream. So I'm going to go in an office and talk to him. So I did. Yep, no problem. We'll tell her other teachers, so everybody here knows. I go, all right, thank you. So there was nothing to interpret. They showed me my daughter getting hit bad and by a car, and you can save her by us giving you this information. So once again, I thank Spirit. I can't believe I have this connection, because if I didn't, I might be saying, hey guys, I just lost my kid today. She got hit by a car. And I would never even thought to not let her go, because they always go in the group of kids. She's 14. She's old enough to be crossing the stupid little street. So anyways, I get stuff like that. It's pretty obvious. Every now and then, I'll get something, and I go, I got to interpret that. And I think this means that, and that means that. And I go, okay, that makes sense. But so this whole thing with the Trump, he's in the back of the helicopter. I'm taking off. As soon as he gets in, we lift off the ground, and it immediately crashes, just rolls to the right and crashes. So didn't even get but a couple feet off the ground. So naturally we survived. I look back there. He's not there anymore, but everything's closed. The doors are closed. Everything. He didn't just get out. So I say to myself, where the hell did he go? And then I just hear he never got on board.
Right.
And then I wake up and I go, oh my God, there's gonna be either a fake accident or a real accident, but he knows about it. So therefore he doesn't get on board, and then comes out and say, hey, they tried to freaking take my plane down. Now this is out of control. Again, just to get everybody behind him going, holy shit, what's taking you guys so long? Let's do something about this. And then finally, maybe boom, the justice or the Congress building shut down. Oh, the military's on the streets rounding up the troublemakers.
Right.
Antifa crowd who's going to be on standby. Again, we got these people coming across the border for what? Just for votes, and some of them are Chinese and African. That's not just for votes.
Part of me thinks sometimes when we express and we have the understanding that we're watching a movie, the movie's supposed to be complicated. It's like watching a murder mystery thing.
Yeah.
You kind of know they're leading breadcrumbs. Oh, that's the guy. He's the killer. Mustard in the lounge with the candlestick or whatever the hell that game was when I was a kid, right? But you always have doubts, and there's little characters that come in to bring you doubts, and that's the whole point of you listening to the doubt, reviewing it, and then going back to what you think it is, and going through that process of having that cognitive dissonance all along. Perhaps that's what we're watching now. So, Joe and Jenny, I kind of want to switch your attention back to the John Titor stuff. Now, ostensibly, as we look at the timeline of John Titor, we're way past the timeline, and things have not happened exactly as it was portrayed when this information came out. That being said, if I talk to the remote viewers right now, they don't really see an election in 2024. Cliff Heisweb out there also is like, ooh, I don't think we get an election in 2024. Oh. So what do you think? Let me ask you first, Joe, and then I'll ask Penny. What do you think? Are we getting an election here? Or is there so much turmoil here, all of these things coming to conclusion or ahead, so to speak, here, that we actually don't have an election and that we might have more turmoil in order for that, in that movie, for us to grow through that process? What's your thought? How do you tie that in, perhaps, with some of the John Titor timeline, Joe?
Well, first, I want to say, with my dreams that I have had with Trump, which there's only been a few, but they were clear to me. Never in any of the dreams did I ever get this sense or feeling or even thoughts of, oh, I don't know about this guy. I just want to say that because I thought, well, it could stand that we are all being deceived.
Yeah.
But in any dream that I've ever had about him, it was never, I don't know about him. It was like, oh, he's our guy. Like he's one of us. He's on our team. Yeah. That was always the feeling with him from the time I saw the fake arrest in that dream. There was one before that where there was like a celebration of fireworks were going off about something I remember having. It just, and I'm going, yeah, I mean, if there was a message there about, hey, you might want to watch out. I just felt like Spirit would have given me something by now that I could go, there was at least that one dream that I wasn't real sure about him then. But I'm going, it's never been that. So I just want to say that.
Can I just add to that? Hold on before you go too fast. I'm with you on that too. I have intuition.
Me too.
I share that too. And I've never felt that from him. But, and this is not on Trump, I just want to explain, here in Canada now, we have our own problem, politically speaking. And I'm having to field all these comments on a daily basis on my show. Oh, look, this new leader of the opposition, he's going to fix everything. Yay. I'm like, hold on. Maybe not. Although I do have some weird feelings about this other guy, but that's not my point. My point is, I see these people with their comments hoping and thinking that another person within the same system is going to change the system. And so perhaps even with Trump, even if we don't have any inklings or bad feelings about him, the way it's being presented now is that we're going to change the system from within the system, within the same captured judiciary, within the same captured Congress, who are all beholden to Israel, all these things, right? So you kind of have to give yourself a pause too to say, yeah, maybe it's not about the guy at this point. Maybe it's about the approach. And that's why I want to bring you back to the John Titor stuff. Maybe in the approach, we do need some type of gut punch or some type of near-death experience, if only to wake up humans to realize, fuck, I got to do this shit myself, because otherwise nobody else is going to do it.
And Trump just died on a plane crash. Oh my gosh. And maybe he has to go away for a while.
Yeah.
So some of these things can happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, back to the John Titor stuff, it's like, I did that 4-part series a long time ago, and my channel got terminated, but then, someone saved it. Joe, you want it? Oh yeah, sweet. I'll go re-upload it. So, those videos had a lot of views. I never knew because I never went back to really go look, but they had quite a number of views on them. Yeah. But it was just me going, I saved this stuff in an email, and I studied the hell out of the story, and I got every little piece. There was a lady named Pamela who talked with him.
Yeah.
And I talked to her. I called her on the phone one day, and I'm asking her questions. Like, this was a long time ago. And she had mentioned, like, yeah, if we go down his bad timeline, he's said he would come back for me and get, like, so I don't have to live through it. And she's like, and here I am today. Obviously, he didn't come back. So, you know, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. You know, so I left it at that. Now, you know, again, there's a lot of like, okay, a lot of time went by that he made us believe this stuff should have happened by then. But gosh, if you just see what he's, you know, all the things he talked about, I mean, it's here in some respects, and then in others it's not. And so it does make you wonder. But I don't know. I still, you know, if
Well, do
if
you
there's
see
a
an
trust
election for 2024, Joe?
yeah, I don't think there'll be one either.
Okay.
I didn't get any dreams on it, but I just personally don't think we're gonna have one.
Okay.
Oh.
Let's get Penny on this too. Then Penny, going back to some of the John Theater stuff, the conversation here about maybe not pinning all our hopes on a savior, as good as that person may or may not be. The question is, how do we fix things from inside the broken system? Are we fighting the correct fight? This is why I'm having a conversation about the Elohim, by the way, because it's a completely different story that overarcs everything else that's happening here in 3D. Penny,
good luck with that.
On that.
Okay. A couple of things. First of all, somebody sent me a link to a scientist who had been doing some research into the Teeter story. And I read it. I was so blown away. I think I blocked half of it. I don't know if I can find the link again, but what the bottom line was that this John Teeter story was actually Donald Trump speaking. So that was like, OMG. I'll make another comment. When I first heard the story of the 3 books by Ingersoll Lockwood, the Baron Trump marvelous underground.
Janine and I did a decode on this, and there was a connection with the time traveling stuff. It was a hell yes in the cards. So keep going. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that whole thing, from the minute that I saw that, my thought was, no, that's, you know, somebody somewhere had those printed, and to make it look like they belonged to Donald Trump, or they came from another realm or something. So anyway, just some comments to add to the confusion. But I want to say that when you have timelines and you have a whole bunch of them that are similar, and they're unfolding or they're spiraling forward together, the same thing will happen on each timeline, or similar things, but they aren't in perfect alignment. They don't follow the same timing at all. And the triggers for various events are often different. So you know, if you take the John Teeter stuff and you look at it, I can look at that and say, you know, maybe it's March 12th of 2024 when Russia drops a bomb. If one of the things that I was seeing, this was a timeline possibility, not a real thing, was that Putin was gone, and he was holding back the, what do you call it? The anger of the Russian people. They want to come over and bomb us, and Putin is in the way of that. He's the one saying, no, we're not going to do that. You know, he's saying a lot of things that are really very good. But if he goes away, then all of those, what do we call them, hawks? All those Russian hawks are going to push for bombs, nuclear bombs, to be dropped on the U.S. And so the whole Teeter story can still occur. And it would be awful. So somebody that I know had a dream that a bomb was dropped, several, on American cities. This was a dream that he had maybe a month or 2 ago. And they were nuclear, and they were, you know, they were very carefully exploded to do minimum damage in some places and maximum in other places. maximum over the places where we had nuclear warheads stored, and minimum over the cities. So, there's what I think is
That also
important.
came up in the remote viewers just last week, Joe, on the future forecasting group. I thought Ed or
Oh,
somebody else
really?
came up with these mushroom clouds and these bombs here. I'm not sure where the location was, but it was in one of their latest forecasts.
Who was doing that?
The future forecasting group, what was previously known as
Okay.
crypto viewing, Decode and that company.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's talk about the financial system a little bit here too, Joe.
Well, that'll cheer us up for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's all roses and sunshine. Everything's great. We're at the pivot point, of course, with Powell now. The markets are already reacting to that, so much so that here in Canada, they kind of backtrack on the rhetoric of lowering interest rates as was the suggested in the States here for 3 lowerings in 2024. Joe, where do you see us on the timeline here too? Like, you and I have been talking about this for years now, and it appears when you look at all the data points, okay, something has to give, and we don't have that much time. Now, I'll admit, mea culpa, I'll eat crow. In 2010 or 11, I could not possibly have fathomed that the controllers would be able to take the countdown in the road that far down. I thought it was imminent. Like, I was listening to guys like Rob Kirby and all that, and I was like, what do I do? I need to prepare. And thank God I did. I've had all of this time to prepare. But now, looking back at all of this, I look at all these data points. I have all these shows in the last week or two here on the banking system. And I'm like, oh my God, we're at the end of the road here. And that spells disaster again for all the people who aren't paying attention to these shows, who are just looking at mainstream news, telling them that everything's okay, go on vacation, go spend money for the holidays, don't buy gold, that's just a pet rock, even though Costco keeps selling out of their silver and gold coins that they've been selling here. They've made millions of dollars on that. Joe, where are we on the timeline with this financial system? And is that perhaps really what the gut punch or the near-death experience could be here, not just for North America, but everybody around the world, realizing this whole Ponzi scheme was just that, a Ponzi scheme, and we got fleeced again in this whole process, being distracted by the people having anal sex in Congress. Joe.
Yeah,
I had to insert that one in there.
Oh my God.
Insert. Okay, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Okay, Joe.
Okay. Yeah.
So the financial, again, I'm with you on this. The same thing. I mean, I remember just kind of coming into the information around, like, I think 2006 or 7, about all this stuff and how the banking works and Federal Reserve, and it's just like, oh my God, we're sitting on a house of cards. I got to buy silver. That's the one. So I start buying silver and all that crap. That's when I started 2008, 7, 8. And, I'm like, I want to try to get 1,000 ounces. If that'd be wonderful if I could ever get that amount. I'm trying to scrape up enough to get 300 ounces, and back then I think silver might've been, 10 or 12 bucks or something. So,
right. It was,
I'm just, trying to scrape what I could. And the next thing I know, a few years went by. So I can scrape up another 300 ounces, okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, let me try that again. I'll be at 900 ounces, next thing I know, I'll finally be at 1,000 ounces, and that's kind of how I played it. And then again, now we're in 2023. I'm like, geez, 10 years ago was 2013. I was worried in 2008. Let me get my food storage, Yep. But the thing is, everything's fine until it isn't. Just like when your power goes out. The power was on for, 6 months straight until the storm came through. And then boom, now our power's out. And it was bad once. So we're out for a week. It's one of those things. It could happen tonight with the financial system. It could be tomorrow. Or it may go another 2 effing years. And we just keep, we have 30 trillion, 35 trillion debt, 40 trillion. It's just numbers on the screen at this point. What about we spend this much money for the military budget. Now our freaking debt is the same amount. Jesus Christ, it just went over it. Holy cow. Okay, they'll just print more money.
Yeah.
They'll just print more money and we'll just owe more money. It's just like, it'll be destroyed when they want it to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing was like, well, before Trump can come back, which would be 2024, this has to happen with Biden. But again, if we don't have an election in 2024, and that's part of America getting riled up, hey, there's our guy, we want him in. What's going on? Well, this happened, that happened, and they keep fleecing us. there's another year or however long where, okay, we still don't have our guy. And therefore there's another year or more where they can just skate this thing along a little longer. So, you know, again, my dreams have shown $6 silver, 20-cent XRP, gold under $1,000. I didn't ask for any of it. I just got here's your dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, what is safe? What's going to be safe if that's what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. You got spent all this money on silver all these years to be getting it at a price you never ever bought it at. Even in 2007, it wasn't $6.
No.
You know, so I'm going, what? How and why? I didn't get the how and why. Mm-hmm. Just it's coming. So I think the whole entire thing is going to blow up, implode, and I think it's going to happen all at the same time. It'll be probably some black swan event. And again, if we have an event in New York, the power is out, and they call it something worse than 9/11, which is what I was told in one of my dreams. And it was about New York, and there's water in the streets, flooding. And I just remember hearing this is worse. This will be considered worse than 9/11 is how this will be referred to. And that's what JC, the Buffalo, and all that stuff in that dream.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, so just imagine rapid fire, that. Oh, the guys, the Chinese who were coming across the border. Oh, now they're doing this. And oh, that's just terror attack, this, and then show me how crypto and gold and silver and the stock market's going to scream if all those things were happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're going to be facing, just like kind of one thing after another.
You know, Cliff is saying in the chat, it's the bonds that allowed them to create dollars, but bonds are not being a purchase
that's right.
anymore.
Well,
and now the
Fed will just buy them.
Yeah, exactly. It's unsanitized monetization. It's
yeah, I'll print the money and then I'll buy it too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll buy the bonds for that money too. I mean, what is
and
this?
On top of that,
Mickey Mouse.
We're now having momentum, or what Jim Woodley calls escape velocity, in terms of countries decided to come together to do trade outside of the US dollar. And that's growing by the day to a big point. So we can't kick the road, or they can't just print money when nobody else is buying it. We're getting at that, critical pivot point here, so to speak. Penny, let me ask you here too. Like in your last look, see again, guys can go. You can go watch that on her YouTube, Penny Kelly official channel. What do you see for the financial system here? Again, like I was reporting last month, I saw an article in the CTV News suggesting that fiscal policy was designed to create pain. And I'm like, wow, they're being honest about it. They want to create so much pain that we'll accept their new solution, these CBDCs. So they have to create pain here. And I think they're ready to pull the plug if they haven't already pulled the plug. And that's what Bill Holter was saying on my show a little while ago. The fuse is lit. They've already pulled the plug. This ship is going down. And it's a question of, are you going to be the last one holding a ticket, an IOU, or are you going to get into physical and not listening to all of these mainstream media hacks who are bought and paid for it? Penny, where do you think we are on the financial system?
I think we're on the downhill slope now. I haven't tried to look to see anything economic or financial, because once I got all the information from Martin Armstrong's conference, once you get that kind of information, it taints your ability to see clearly. And so I haven't gone to look. But before I got that information, I had 2 dates, March and May of 2024, that were somehow critical or involved the banking system or something to do with the banking system. And so I was very interested when Martin Armstrong's, what's his computer called? Socrates. Yeah. He said that the May 7th is an economic peak similar to the January 20th peak of COVID, the COVID start. He said something very big is coming on May 7th and 8th. He expects the U.S. government to default. We'll see. He said that may not happen until until 2027, after the war. He still sees a war. I still see a war. And it's a stupid war. It's a stupid people angry and being pissy with one another and fighting over nothing. They don't even know why they're fighting. They're just mad. They're angry. And because nothing has worked out, and because all of the old system is gone or is falling apart, some of that, a huge part of that, is due to the advances in AI, and that's pretty much that's coming. And I love technology, but I don't know. I trust the people that are running the technology, so that worries me. But it looked to me like before I was listening to Martin Armstrong's dates and all his stuff, that something happened in May. And I remember thinking, oh, good, because that's the start of summer. People will have all summer, which is an easier time of the year to make adjustments in their lifestyle, prepare for winter, grow some food, blah, 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 blah. It won't be so bad. But
can I ask you, Joe, just to add to that for a second, Penny, and hold that thought, Penny, too. Joe, in Cliff's latest email, I think to us, I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, and remind me if I'm wrong, he was picking up in his last run that we would start seeing huge indications of this hyperinflation in January, February of 2024 that would lead into critical failure in the European Union, perhaps the euro itself and the ECB, and then maybe weeks later, the US dollar and the US banks. And that was bringing us, I believe, towards May. So the timing that Penny's calling about now seems right. Am I getting that right, Joe? Do you want to add to that just for the conversation? Oh, I think you're muted, Joe, on your side.
Let's not forget that guy, David Wilkerson, the prophecy of David Wilkerson from the 90s, where he said you'd have 2 weeks or so. It hit Europe first, and then it would come here. He goes, and I watched Macy's in New York City just get raped and pillaged by people just because it was just a free-for-all. It just went nuts. And he said you'd have a couple of weeks before it came here and to get your money out of the banks here, because it was going to be here shortly. I never forget that guy for some reason. But I wanted to say just a minute ago, right when Penny started talking, I just kind of had this like, hey, you should mention this.
Go ahead.
Kind of come in. So remember Dick Allgire's remote viewing of there's a politician, he's standing, he's talking to people, he knows he's lying, but he says this anyways. You got to appease the people because they're scared, they're nervous, they're feeling really distraught. So he's trying to appease them, but he knows he's lying.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think it might be Trump, And so my thought, it just came in. It's Trump, and he's already said it. And I was watching. He did a video, maybe one of these rallies of the last day or two, and he's talking about, how he's gonna. And I think I made a comment on the Twitter thing or wherever it was posted. I think I even commented. I go, yeah. Because someone said, oh, I think this is him talking about Gassara and Nassara. And I go, well, he didn't say the debt's going away. He said, we're going to pay back the debt and we'll pay it all off and we're going to turn everything around and we're going to be great again. And I go, that's not Nassara, Gassara.
No.
That's paying it off. So again, but he's in front of this big crowd of people and he's telling them how when he comes back, we're going to pay the debt off. These are all things like, oh yeah, we're going to be a great country again. But I'm thinking Dick Allgire saying he knows he's lying. He just has to tell him what he has to tell him, but he knows he's lying. And
let me ask you bluntly here, because we need to be clear. Let me ask you bluntly, both of you, we need to be clear here, because I still have a lot of people on the show. They're new to all of this. And there's still a lot of people out there pinning their hopes on some of these truthers out there saying, oh, Nashara just got activated on Friday. There's 800 numbers. You can redeem your, like all of this stuff. Where are you, Joe, on this whole situation? Are we on our own?
Do not rely on that. You need to rely on that about as much as you need to rely on your chances of going to the store and getting a lottery ticket and winning it.
Yeah.
Because if you win it, fantastic. You're set the rest of your life. Take care of your friends and family. You got enough money to pay all their houses and debt off. They're going to love you. You're good to go. Your kids, your kids' kids, your kids' kids' kids.
Right.
But what's the chances of that happening? Probably not real high. So anything about this nonsense, Jassara Nassara is activated, the Galactic Federation of Light is going to assist, and and David Wilcock and Ben Fulford. No. I'm telling you right now.
Tell me what you
do not rely on
Joe. Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Penny, where are you in all of this? And again, like, I'm not trying to belittle anybody. I'm trying to have conversations.
Right.
Like what Joe just said here, like, great. If that happens, you're good. But what if it doesn't? Have you prepared? are you responsible for yourself?
Right.
What's the harm in being responsible for yourself and taking actions now? And on top of that, maybe getting the Nicera Jacera billions, gazillions of dollars at the end. Penny,
Yeah.
what's your thought on all this?
Well, when I very first heard about Nicera Jacera, I thought, oh, really? And I just kind of held it out there, maybe this is real, but it didn't strike me as real. And so that lasted for a year or two, just kind of, well, maybe. And then I kept hearing about it. And then I saw these terms. And this happened so long ago now, I can't remember exactly what I saw, but there were like all these points, and they were numbered. They're going to do this, and this is going to happen, and that, and then they're going to do such and such. And I remember one day, the day that I got those points for the first time, reading them and understanding that each one of those things was eventually going to happen, but only separately, not as a program, and only after the destruction, the war, the breakup of the U.S., the complete collapse of the economic system, the loss of a whole bunch of people. Somebody would say, oh, look, we achieved some of these things that we wanted to achieve with Nicera, but we did it kind of accidentally, and not all of them. Mm-hmm. And so I've had that kind of an attitude of, that whole list of things that's going to be the result of the absolute destruction of everything that we have known, our lifestyles, our government, our medical, our education, our financial system, our technology, the whole thing, and we'll build something new and kind of put it back together in a whole new way. And a couple of these things are things that we're going to keep in mind, and we will build into the system, but that's as far as it's gone.
So I'm with you with both of those statements. And I want to add also, this is exactly what I've been trying to communicate to the audience members since day one of my site. Eventually, as humans wake up and we take controls of our future, we get to a better semblance or more fairness in the financial system. But it's the transition from here to there with all the shit breaking in between. That's what I'm preparing for myself and for my families. And that's what I hope everybody else is preparing for. This whole idea that somebody else is going to save you, save your pension fund and all that stuff. I mean, you can choose to believe that if you want to, but again, what's the downside in preparing? I just don't see it. And so I'm with you on all that stuff. It's just
and then Cliff High $600 silver. Guys, before you get too happy about that, just know the environment around you is not going to be real pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my.
Everyone's like, oh shit, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not because everything's great and peachy and the price was let loose one day. The circumstances around the world right now is why $600 silver is here, and those circumstances are not good.
Right.
Oh.
Let's be fair with the audience too. I want to be responsible. Now, we've just expressed our belief system, our understanding of the Nicera Jacera narrative as it's being presented and as it's being presented now for decades. Okay. Now, going back at just looking at the paper trail, the thumbprints, the fingerprints here of the white hats, clearly there's something being worked in the background. Trump alluded to it many times. The goal thing at the, what was it called? Not the laundromat, but those washing machines. Remember that thing? There was a gold, you and I did a decode on this years ago, Joe, but anyways, I digress. The point is, I do believe that we have people fighting this war. There are good guys, as we talk about here, but whether or not they're working at the granularity level of you, Joe, and me, JC, and Penny's pension plan, no. They're trying to save a country. They're trying to save and perhaps rebuild from that. But that doesn't mean they're coming to save you. They're trying to set the stage so that we can take control and have a better system. But there's still that transition period that nobody knows. All of these plans to maybe have a softer landing, and I believe they do have plans, and some really good minds have thought about it. They're there, But these plans, as we know in war, never survive the first encounter with the enemy. There's all of these unintended consequences of the derivatives, the over-the-counter derivatives, the trillions of dollars that have been printed that we have not yet been told about. Go look at the work of Catherine Austin Fitz. You'll see what we're talking about. So all of that put together, if you're painting a picture for yourself and you're deciding, well, what can I do? You need to work for yourself and protect yourself and not listen to anybody else. You need to really do your own homework here. Joe, what are your thoughts on that? On the plan, whether or not it survives, and whether or not it's there to help you individually or to set the stage for you to eventually be able to be in a more fair system?
Yeah, there's no way it's there for you individually. There's going to be a lot of casualties of war in this, not necessarily just human lives, but businesses, institutions, schooling. There's going to be casualties everywhere, but it's kind of like, the message board said, the ending is not for everyone. And, people are going to be hurt. People are going to be upset. But if it leads to the fixing of this gigantic mess, and this is the only way out, it's like, okay, take that bad medicine, plug your nose. You got to have it. So be it. But again, it's like, we have that medicine. I'm allergic to that thing. Well, you're one individual. Sorry. You're a casualty of war yourself in that respect. So yeah, you have to take personal responsibility. Think about all these things we're talking about. Well, should I leave all this money in the bank? Probably not. Should you have some silver and gold? You probably should, even if it does get smacked down temporarily to $6 or whatever. Yeah. It's having a hard asset in your hands better than having a fake one on a screen, in your bank account that all of a sudden doesn't exist anymore. No, we got hacked. We got hacked. Can you believe it? Everybody's account got wiped out. We don't even know what we owe anybody anymore.
Yeah.
Like Penny said the other day, you might want to download and save some of your statements, print them out, so that you have proof of at least that by this date you had this much money in your account.
Yeah.
What's that clip from Gene Wilder? You get nothing, sir.
Nothing. Good day, sir. You're a crook. You're a scoundrel. You're a phony. You're a fake. Good.
What's that from? It's Gene Wilder with the purple hat there.
Yeah, Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka. Yeah, there you go. Penny, your thoughts on this here too. The idea that, yes, we understand some people are putting plans in motion, but whether or not that comes to the granularity of the individual and whether or not we should prepare for ourselves. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are very, very much different, I think, from a lot of people. What I think the white hats are doing is trying to save the planet from control by a group that is very much worse than the few idiots in Washington, D.C. I think the attempt is going to be to prevent big nuclear war. It's going to be to prevent the takeover of the world in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of chemtrails. That there's so many things, big issues that need to be fixed. That even though I would love to reassure people that you're being taken care of, that's not the case. And, I think it's really important. And I say it all the time, take care of yourself first. And then you can think about helping somebody else. But if you're not taking care of you, you become a burden to, other people around you. And we have first to deal with the really, really big issues. If we don't do that, what's the point?
Well, first of all, thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. And two, just to add to what you were just saying, you struck me when you said, these guys, the white hats, are fighting a fight at a much higher level than we could possibly imagine.
Yes.
And here again, too, we're starting to see the fingerprints of that fight. In this particular interview, Tucker Carlson is saying about aliens and how there's a few topics here he's afraid to talk about. He's afraid to talk about to his wife. Some things he understands, something he doesn't understand. He knows there's a spiritual component to this particular war. Fascinating stuff. This is not Joe, JC, and Penny. It's Tucker Carlson, a very mainstream character, now finally talking about this stuff. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Just the other day, U.S. Space Command reached full operational capability. And I said, yeah, they're ready to fight the Elohim. So we can get into that in another show. But this is what we're were alluding to. The
That's
white
right.
hats here have way bigger problems than your pension fund. And let's just bring this one here too. Cash Patel says the FBI. Oh, not this one. In another conversation here too, they're talking about the military here, knowing and understanding that they're having to fight here in space, and that probably that is already going on. This is part of this interview. It's a wrong clip here. Joe, Penny, like that's the reality of our world right now. So a lot of these 3D concerns and 3D versions of these proxy wars that are being
Right.
played out on the planet as a reflection of what's being played off planet is really distracting us from the real conversation. And we're getting all of this censorship across the board. Don't talk about ETs. My ET is better than your ET.
Well,
Or your gods are my ETs. That whole conversation, nobody wants to have it, but it is the conversation, the
It
most
is.
important conversation we should have now. Penny, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Ask yourself, why is all that information from Mauro Biglino coming out at this particular time?
Mhm.
Why is the Bible coming under question at this particular time? All of it, all of the stories that we've been fed, even though some of them have been very nice and very comforting and very interesting, if they aren't true, they aren't helping. And the fact of the matter is that there are beings here that have been trying to take over. I have a whole YouTube thing that I put out. I forget the name of it now, but it's about the takeover. It was the presentation that I gave at John Peterson's transition talks, Arlington Institute back in, I think it was May of this year.
Yeah.
All of that's pretty serious stuff. And I think one of the things that we have to take into account is if somebody's out there fighting to keep our planet out of the hands of some pretty ugly, greedy beings, what are we doing? Are we helping, or are we standing in the way? Are we having tantrums like a bunch of 3-year-olds because, or we're complaining that somebody stole my cheese, or I don't have a job, or whatever? The world is changing, and it's changing dramatically. And it's going to be a whole new system in 5 years, completely different. I don't see hardly any jobs. What are we going to do then? Especially if your identity is tangled up or is all tied up in your big education that you got forever. It took you forever to get and took you forever to pay for. And then, your job is your identity. Maybe you're in the C-suite or some other big position. If that goes away, and they are going away, and there's 10% of the jobs that we have now are left, and those are very high level jobs. What are you going to do with yourself?
Right.
How are you going to maintain your sense of identity, your sense of contribution, your connection to the people around you? Those are big issues. That's what I think we, the people, need to be dealing with, and trust that somebody, and there's several groups that are fighting for us, trying to make sure that we don't end up in the grip of a system that is really ugly.
Mm-hmm. Joe,
I would like to ask Penny a question.
Oh, but first, I want your thoughts on this conversation about ET and why it's so important right now. And I'll bring up the Cash Patel link in a second here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I always go back to the whole thing of, they're going to pull the old UFO card as the final thing.
Yep.
And it's going to be basically a fake invasion. Well,
yep.
You could call it a fake invasion, but even if it's us with our highly advanced technology, you wouldn't know the difference sitting here, drinking your latte or whatever, going to Starbucks. You're not going to know the difference. It's the same technology. When I had that dream not too long ago, I was in a spaceship that you would easily say that's a UFO. There's probably an ET inside, but it was me. But I knew I was fighting another spaceship with a real ET inside. So that was strange to me in that dream. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Number one, we have the technology apparently. And number two, I'm actually fighting with an ET. What does that mean? Yeah. So I didn't get the sense that, it was a fake alien invasion.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a real fight.
It
So,
is.
and I always thought, well, they said they're going to pull the fake ET card on us. Well, maybe it's not the fake ET card after all.
Well, if you guys listen to the congressional testimonies this summer, David Grush and company too, like they're expressing what they're seeing right now. The Pentagon's been out there. Nobody seems to be listening. And that's what Tucker Carlson was alluding to. Why is nobody paying attention to this? And perhaps it's because it's too hard to look at. Penny and I did a pay-per-view on this 2 years ago. She talked about this takeover scenario, what's being played out. And I agree with Tucker to some extent. There's some things that maybe some people can't hear. And that's okay. Maybe they can turn around from the conversation. But those of us who can, we're responsible to have these conversations. We're obligated by duty to have these conversations. This was the link I was talking about here. Kash Patel just insinuated that there is some kind of battle going on in space right now. Again, all this news coming out at the same time is not happenstance. That's for sure. Joe, you had a question for Penny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious. Did the Little Men in Robes ever talk to you about religion or the Bible or any of that stuff and said, like, look, this is either the truth about it or just anything? Did they ever get into that with you?
Not deeply. However, everything that they showed me, I didn't write about it in the book. I had a number of personal learning experiences in which they were teaching me about frequency and the nature of reality, and it just blew everything that had to do with God, not with God, with the Bible. It blew the whole, how do I say it, the whole idea of this immense intelligence that most people here refer to as God. It just completely rewired my thinking, reshaped my mind, reorganized my whole worldview to understand that this was where the great spirit or the great power or the great God or the Godhead, whatever you want to call it, that's what that was. It was this immense field of intelligent light, and that it could be communicated with, and that it needed to be communicated with if you were going to grow and become wise and eternal, and that we would have to let go. They were very gentle. We would have to let go of many of our preconceived notions about everything. Right on down the line, through religion, through government, through health, through healing, through the whole thing. Technology was one of their favorite things. I didn't say a whole lot about the technology. I just described the houses of the future. But yeah, a lot of changes.
Let me read this quote here from the chat. Cliff is saying, I'm training my body at least 1 hour a day in anticipation of our coming contention with these Elohim. Now, I've been on that same track. A lot of our viewers have had that same hard voice message in their head. Get your body.
Woo Dude had a thought on this a long time back. He hasn't brought up in a long time.
Who?
And I remember him telling Woo Dude.
Oh.
And he said, there's going to be two sets of these beings that come. He's
That's right.
The first ones, he goes, you may not want to interact with those guys. You may want to stay away from those guys. But the second ones will be okay. Like they'll be our friends or our whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And I thought that what an interesting. He said that a long time back and hasn't really mentioned that again. And anytime recently. So I always thought about that. And I'm thinking, well, maybe this is who he's talking about is coming first.
And that's why this conversation about the Elohim is very important. We need to start discerning God versus the gods plural that the Elohim refer to in the Bible or in the translations of the Bible. Again, this is a bigger show, guys. Go watch the Angels and the Great Deception show coming up with Jay Widener on December 21st at 1 p.m. We'll get more into that conversation. But going back to getting your body ready here for this contention, I agree with Cliff. I've been on that same track. A lot of our viewers are doing the same thing. I encourage you guys, look at this clip here from Cliff. Your demons can't face you when you face them. Yeah, get your body strong. Get your sleep. Get your sleep in. That's the best place to recover your body and to build a muscle as well to be strong, to fight here the war that's in front of us. You can find, of course, Cliff High's Pure Sleep here, Generation 2, the new strawberry one. I love that one, here at purebulk.com. I'll bring the links down in the live chat for you guys here as well. Before we go, I guess the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, maybe words of advice here, dealing with one, the acceleration of the censorship we're seeing now on a lot of these conversations, and also not the censorship just at the level of other truthers, the government and all that. Yeah, that's difficult enough, but do speak about that. But also talk about the censorship at the very fundamental human core level, the family level, the friends right now, whether or not we should let people cancel our beliefs, cancel our thoughts, delete us from their Facebook just because they don't agree with our topics right now. And I did mention this, I think, before the show. That's what led us into the problems with the shot. We let all these doctors be canceled and the nurses be canceled, and then people are telling me, JC, well, just let them decide on their own. They can't decide if they're only listening to one side of the equation, which is the propaganda of the governing party and perhaps the Elohim. We need all of these voices out there, and we need to listen to all of them. As Cliff High said, if you're going to survive here going into the age of Aquarius, your information is what's going to save you, not anybody else's. You need to do the homework, and you need to have access to all of this information. Penny, let's talk about the censorship and how we deal with that at the big level and also at the family level.
I think it hurts. Number one, it hurts when somebody just cuts you off and you're not heard. How can we have a world of peace? How can we have a world of love when you don't want to hear what the other guy has to say and you don't honor that? I have very little patience with that kind of thing. I see it everywhere. I see it in my own family, you know, and between siblings and cousins, and especially among the young ones. But the older ones are actually a little bit better. When you refuse to hear somebody, that's like a stab in the heart. So, you know, why are we hurting one another? Why are we embracing? Why aren't we saying, and what else? And what else? And what more? And in order to draw out from people all of their thinking, because when people are allowed to talk, they actually hear what they're saying. And if you're not interrupting every 5 seconds with something of your own, they end up hearing themselves. And when they hear themselves, there will be little pieces of what they say that hang in the air in their consciousness. And they end up learning about themselves, and they end up changing because of that. When somebody is being a jerk and you let them be a jerk and you're absolutely silent, then there they are having to face their own jerky stupidity, and they become uncomfortable. And there's a much better chance that they're going to say, you know, maybe I'm sounding like I don't want to sound. And they'll do something different the next time. So in terms of what's going on in the world, you know, you're not going to cut off people from saying their truth. That just builds division. It's not acceptable.
Joe, thank you, Penny. I appreciate that. Joe, your thoughts on this crazy censorship we're seeing on Twitter, the blocking of people who have, even just by association, who've never said anything about a particular person. How do we deal with that? And what would you say to the audience also on how to deal with that? Because on one hand, I see the audience members like, JC, I don't want to take sides. This is hard. Like, these are hard words. I'm like, no, it's the truth. Prove me wrong. Yep. Why are we blocking communication? Why are we stifling debate? I remember seeing that video between Graham Hancock and Zahi Hawass, and Zahi was like all angry, like, no, it's pseudoscience. I'm not talking to you. The debate is closed. I'm like, that's the science. Just like COVID, the debate is closed. Well, guess what? It's not closed. We need to have the conversation. Joe.
Right.
Yeah, you should always be able to have 2 sides, 3 sides, 4 sides, at how many sides come up. That's how science works. Yeah. That's how you get to the absolute bottom of something, is to have different views. You know, and if you're stuck on one particular view, you don't know any different. But if someone has the ability to come to you and share something else with you, that may be, you know, life-changing. Oh my God, I didn't know that. holy cow, all of a sudden you just shattered their old belief because you came to them with some other truth that's actually the real truth, potentially. But at least you have a choice and go, well, okay, I heard this guy. This is the scientist, and I should trust him because he's the scientist. But then there's this other scientist that doesn't agree with that scientist. Why don't they agree? Well, okay, let's hear why.
Right.
Have the debate, have the talk. Yeah, this whole thing with Bo Polney is weird. I mean, I just opened my Twitter and there's Cliff, Bo, and I'm like, what the hell? Where's the first part of the story? Like, it just started with that. Like, what the hell's going on with this? And I went to say something, and I sorry, you can't post. What? Why not? I click on Bo's name. You're blocked.
Oh,
I'm blocked. It was Cliff High who said it. I'm just sitting here reading this from my computer. And then I got people all Telegram. Oh, he blocked me. He blocked me. He blocked me. I'm like,
yeah.
What is that? Like, that's just stupid. Just, come on, let's have and I don't even need to be part of the talk. It was actually between you and Cliff High. Like, hey, you guys go talk your thing. But, to be fair, I mean, I've known Bo a long time, and I had my old channel, and there was a couple of times that I had a couple of issues with him that I had to bring out in the open. But it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But at least I aired it out, on there on YouTube, so to speak. But I didn't block stuff and.
And to be fair, Joe, first of all, thank you for saying that. But also, I want people to realize I invited Bo on my show many times. I was respectful. I was open to his information, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I wanted our audience to be able to hear a different point of the story, because most of our show is woo. Most of our show is spiritual. He brought a different component to it. And we had nothing but respect towards him. And so us being blocked, and the BeyondMystic community, the people who supported him also when he came on the show, who were very nice to him, suddenly we're in the censorship fight and we don't have a say anymore. And I took offense to that for the BeyondMystic community. I'm like, what the hell? We showed that we had an open mind. We had you on the show. We were respectful to you. Why is it all of a sudden now that our views are unacceptable and they must be blocked and canceled? I just couldn't understand it. I was kind of like beside myself. And it wasn't like I think it personally as much as like, hey, this is what got us into trouble in the first place. Blocking people, canceling people, and all that.
We should be doing it to each other. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Amen.
I do want to tell you a funny story, though. This is a funny story that has Bo in it.
Okay.
When I went on my first Litecoin meetup thing, crypto thing in Las Vegas, not the first one, I think it was the second one, and Dick and everybody was there. My wife, me and my wife, and if you look at Bo Polney and you look at the celebrity guy, Chef Ramsay, they look really, really similar. So I'm sitting in there and I'm like in the middle of the room. I'm like talking with some people, and she was a little bit behind me. And I guess Bo walked right like in front of me and the guys I was talking with and kept going that way. And I didn't see him. I was like looking at these people. Evelyn's like, Joe. She's like tapping me, Joe. I'm like, what? Chef Ramsay just walked by. And I'm like, Chef Ramsay's here at the CryptoCon? I look over and I go, oh shit, I think it's him. And then I look, it's Bo Polney. Evelyn. It's this guy, Bo Polney. He's a crypto guy and other stuff. Like, yeah, he does. Yeah, I was like, she's like, oh, it's not Chef Ramsay? I go, yeah, it's not Chef Ramsay. Sorry, Evelyn. It's just
I don't watch cooking shows or anything like that, so I don't know what Chef
It was
Ramsay
a funny
looks
thing.
like.
I bring it up every great once in a while because it was so funny how she was so like, oh my God, Joe, he just walked by. Because we used to watch his Hell's Kitchen and all this stuff. And, we're in Vegas, for God's sakes. He's got a couple restaurants there. Yeah. It would have been possible for him to be there. So, I thought it until I took a second take. I go, Evelyn, that's Bo Polney. Who's that? I go, it's just one of our YouTube guys. One of our YouTube guys.
Oh, wow.
Guys, we're already almost 2 hours into the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the great comments, both here on YouTube. We've got about 2,200 here and another 6,000 on Rumble, and I think 1,000 on Twitter. That's a lot. It's like 9,000. Yesterday night, I think we hit 11,000 on the show too. Like
I saw that, yeah.
And that's what Cliff was saying too. We're getting into this splits happen now, where people are leaving the mainstream news. They're leaving. Probably because of that, all the censorship, the cancel.
Do you realize? Do you look at your videos? It looks like on Rumble you get way more views.
Oh yeah, I'm still throttled back on YouTube. On YouTube, I have 2,000-3,000 views on a video. It doesn't make any sense. Whereas on Rumble, I have half the subscribers and I have like 100 or 200,000 views on a video.
Yeah, it's weird.
YouTube is still kind of weird with all that. Before I go, Penny and Joe, Penny, let me start with you. You brought up, you gave me something to share with the audience here before we go. This is your Intuition 6 multi-dimensional existence.
Oh,
Here,
yeah.
let's share that with the audience. What's coming up here and how can people partake in this particular instruction set?
I am going to be teaching this January 5, 6, and 7, 2024. And this is an advanced class. You have to have taken the other classes in order to get into it. But this is one of my favorite classes, 5 and 6, because it's intense and it deals with the nitty-gritty of everything that is intuitive, how the brain works, all the stuff that we've been building up to, and explain the end of time and how to become a multidimensional person, which means that you stop living in a way that's linear and you start living in a way that is multidimensional. It's much more powerful. And there's probably more I could say, but yeah, it's coming up and I'm really excited about this.
And they can register to that here on pennykelly.com?
Yeah. Yeah, if you've taken the first 5 classes, you can register for 6.
Okay.
And it's on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 2 to 6 p.m.
Okay, very good. So, folks, pennykelly.com is where you can find that. And of course, if you want to look at her latest look-see, let me bring that link back down in the live chat here. She gives a little bit more details as to where things are going here as per her look-see view. So there you go. That's in the live chat now. And Joe, how about you? What's going on here in the crypto world? I think we're starting to see some momentum now. A lot of people and technical analysts are getting excited again over crypto. We had this weird sideways couple of years, but we're getting in again here to perhaps this huge transformation in our financial system. And I think a lot of big players are sniffing that out. So we're seeing the bigger players like BlackRock and other institutional companies getting into the crypto space, but we're also seeing the mom and pops going back and looking at the course we did, the crypto crash course here on BeyondMystic.net, and they're starting to be interested here and realizing that they need to educate themselves. So what's going on in the crypto world, and what do you have for them on your Patreon account?
Yeah, we've got the standard $20 a month plan, which is all anybody needs if you're going to join my Patreon. I get my woo dreams and stuff. I post on there when it's relevant to stuff that we're talking about, crypto and things. Sometimes I'll get something with crypto, like the recent Bitcoin move, 38K. It was 26, I think, at the time I got the dream. And I was showing a giant red ice cream cone after it hit 38K, like a pinkish ice cream cone, like lick your ice cream. For us, that means lick your ice cream, take your profits, don't watch them melt. And the size of that ice cream cone was so huge. I said, I think they're letting me know you better take your money and run. When it hits 38K. So that's kind of what I did for the most part. Although Woo Dude just called and he goes yesterday, hey man, he goes, Spirit's been on my ass about this coin. I know we may still get this dump or whatever. He goes, but either before or after this coin, so sometimes he'll call because he gets something. So I just want to say, I'll go post it on Patreon. Hey, he told me about this thing. So you know what? You want to grab a small bag? Let's go grab a small bag just in case. Because usually when he calls, it doesn't take long. Like it's like, okay, he called about a coin. Something's gonna happen pretty soon. But again, I know all the talking heads. There was somebody on MSNBC again talking about the Bitcoin ETF and And we think by January 10th it's going to be installed and ready to go, and it'll just be a few more weeks after that by the time it's ready to go. And I'm going, he's on MSNBC saying this, huh? Same place that has Jim Cramer, who every time he opens his mouth, you do the opposite.
Do the exact opposite, man.
So, again, it's like, are they pumping the market? Hey, guys, look, the ETF, man, it's coming, ETF, and then rug pull.
Yeah.
JSNIP's red ice cream cone. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm more positioned for the drop than something rising right now. So just, we talk about that kind of stuff on my Patreon. And again, if I get some, like a Trump dream, I'll post some shit like that on there. Like, hey, you guys would want to hear about this. So I'll post it on there, things like that.
All
the
right.
$40 plan is if you need a little more, access to me, send me a message. You got some questions about something or portfolio review, things like that. Or I can't figure out how to get back in this wallet. Do you remember, maybe I can help you like the process or something, things like that. Nothing too crazy. Like I'm not going to hold your hand and go into your computer and remote into an exchange
Yeah,
with you.
you kind of have to get yourself here a little bit here before you ask for help for Joe. Guys, you can find that, of course, at patreon.com/JSNIP4. A few people in the chat are saying, JC, I can't find the crypto crash course. So let's go back here to beyondmystic.net. What I've done here is I typed it in. So just go back here, type it in the search box here, crash course, enter, and they all come up here. So as you'll see, the security addendum and the wallet are now out of stock. That's because Joe has redone the main crash course here, and he's included both of those addendum in that main course. We just did that last month together. So all you need is that center one there, the Panic to Own crash course. Crypto 101 basically class for you guys. It's there on beyondmystic.net. I think that's about it. Oh, I need to address this. A few people in the chat are saying, JC, you need to interview Cliff High. I'm like, I interview Cliff High all the time. What are you guys talking about? But yes, he is going to come back for a part 2 to the Sci-Fi World Lunacy episode. Probably sometime in the spring. He told me right now he's going through some construction at his house, so his studio is not set up for this. But at the same time, I'm trying here to lay down some groundwork and more research, have more interviews on this conversation about the Elohim before Cliff comes back. So bear with me here as we do all of these other interviews. And of course, Cliff will be back on the scene soon enough. Don't you threat. I'm excited myself to have him back on. Please don't forget, guys, if you haven't seen this Blackout episode here, December 18, very interesting show. There's a lot in there, including some viewer questions. And yes, December 1st here at 1 p.m. Eastern, The Angels and the Great Deception Exposed with Jay Weiner. It's going to be a continuation here of this talk on the Elohim. And finally, so I have it again here. I have, where did it go? Yes, take 2 here of the interview with Max Egan that didn't occur today. We had some technical glitches here with our schedule. That is now back on for this Friday, December 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much, everyone.
Is that Cliff's twin brother? Who is that guy?
Yeah.
He's kind of a little bit, you know.
You know who's Cliff High's brother or lookalike? Who was that guy from the movie Counterpart, Joe?
Oh, from what was the movie?
Well, the Counterpart was a series, but there was another movie.
No, it was a movie where they escaped like in the pod War thing. Yeah, yes,
War, or something like that.
I forget his name.
Like Cliff High.
Oh my God, it looks like Cliff. He was all ripped too.
And you know, Cliff is working out, dude, and I wouldn't be surprised. He's gaining a lot of weight, muscle weight, of course, using a lot of supplements, vitamins, sunning his balls, as he said, but also pure sleep. A very important part here in recovering from all of his workouts. So check it out at purebulk.com and look for Pure Sleep. And you might want to get some adaptogens and maybe some creatine and maybe some protein powder as well if you want to work out and help your muscles recuperate. The fight is just around the corner with the Elohims. And of course, you can't your demons can't face you when you face them. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I love you guys. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon. Au revoir.